Have you ever been told you weren't enough? That your dreams were too big, too impossible, or simply not meant for someone like you? We've all faced those moments where the world tries to shrink us, to tell us where we belong. But what if the very rejection that broke your heart was actually a hidden runway, leading you to a sky you never imagined? Join us as we share a story about quiet determination, unexpected heroes, and the incredible truth that sometimes the person the system casts aside is the only one who can save the day. You were rejected from flight school for a reason. Brooks, stick to your wrenches. The words rang across the hangar floor like an old, cruel joke worn thin from repetition. But the sting in them never dulled. Haley Brooks had heard it too many times to count, yet each time it landed like a fresh slap. For the past 8 years, she'd been relegated to the sidelines, no more than a grease-stained silhouette among the Raptors she loved. She scrubbed cockpits, replaced hydraulics, diagnosed problems in engines that would never carry her skyward. She was the one who fixed dreams she was never allowed to chase. But tonight, that changed. At 30,000 feet, in the middle of a high-stakes emergency training exercise, a pilot in distress broke protocol, ignored the control tower, and instead spoke her name, through the encrypted military comms. Haley Brooks. The ground crew froze. Comms officers blinked. Who was she really? And why, in the heart of a crisis, did an elite pilot place his faith not in the ranks or the brass, but in her? Haley, now 32, passed the same flight line every morning at Redstone Air Base, where the F-22 Raptors thundered toward the sky while she made her quiet walk toward the maintenance hangar. Her toolbox in one hand, her badge clipped to a uniform that always seemed a size too big or a stripe too short. What weighed heavier than the metal in her box were the what-ifs she carried in her chest. Unspoken, unanswered, unrelenting. 8 years ago, she had dared to apply to the Air Force Academy. She had dared to believe that maybe, just maybe, she could belong in the cockpit instead of under it. But the letter came back with a finality that pierced deeper than any wrench ever could. Rejected. No elaboration needed, but they gave one anyway. Insufficient physical qualifications. She knew better. Too short, too quiet, too unlike the image they had in mind for a fighter pilot. Not bold enough, not loud enough, not enough, period. It crushed her, but not completely. If the door to flying had been slammed in her face, she would crawl through the ductwork instead. Flight school outside the military was a dream she couldn't afford. So she took the only job she could find that still kept her near the sky. Aircraft maintenance technician. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't fast. But it was a way in, and she studied. God, did she study. She read flight manuals until the pages blurred into her dreams. Every schematic, every checklist, every emergency protocol, they were burned into her mind. To her colleagues, though, she was a joke with delusions, especially to Dave Martinez, a fellow tech with a loud laugh and a louder opinion. Still reading those pilot handbooks, Brooks, he'd sneer, tossing a rag over one shoulder like he owned the place. When are you going to figure it out? Some people are meant to fly. The rest of us just fix their planes. But what Dave, and everyone else, didn't know was that every night after the shift ended and the hangar lights dimmed, Haley transformed. Inside her tiny apartment with her ancient laptop, joystick, and headset, she became something else entirely. Valkyrie, a name spoken in awe across the digital skies of the world's top military-grade flight simulation networks. A living legend, cloaked in anonymity, who outmaneuvered retired aces, outthought active-duty flyers, and rewrote the laws of air combat, all from the comfort of a desk chair. The combat sim community was no casual gamer space. It was a sanctuary where real-world tactics were tested, debated, refined. It drew pilots from every branch, every background, all chasing excellence. And Valkyrie, she was the benchmark, the mystery, the ghost in the clouds. Her style was nothing short of audacious. Split-second decisions, impossible rolls, and recovery techniques that pushed the simulated F-22 to the brink of its programming. She executed impossible dogfights with surgical precision, making even the most seasoned pilots rethink everything they thought they knew. Some said she had to be a top-secret AI developed by DARPA. Others insisted she was a legendary pilot flying under an alias. A few dared to guess she might be a Pentagon insider, field testing next-gen tactics. No one, not one soul, imagined she was just a ground tech at Redstone with calluses on her hands and a heart that still beat for the sky. Tonight, Redstone buzzed with energy. The base was running emergency response drills, F-22 Raptors from the 27th Fighter Squadron simulating high-pressure failures, blown engines, rogue weather, total system meltdowns. It was serious training, the kind of drills that made the difference between life and death in combat zones. Haley stood at the tarmac's edge, officially there for mechanical standby in case something needed a quick fix. Unofficially, she was absorbing everything, every takeoff, every comm exchange, every twist and turn in the air above. Each piece of data, each nuance would later feed into her next round of simulations. She wasn't just watching, she was archiving, understanding, calculating. And just then, from across the runway came a voice she recognized. Dave, of course. Beside her, clipboard in hand and that familiar smug grin plastered across his face, Dave Martinez hovered like a shadow she couldn't shake. Still watching the real pilots, huh? Brooks, always dreaming of being up there while the rest of us are stuck on the ground turning wrenches. Haley didn't reply at first. Her eyes remained locked on an F-22 slicing through the sky with surgical precision, executing a particularly intricate approach pattern. She studied every detail, the timing of control inputs, the aircraft's aerodynamic responses, as if mentally dissecting it frame by frame. In her mind, she was already reconstructing the entire maneuver, laying the groundwork for how she'd replicate it in the simulator later that night. Some dreams are worth holding on to, she finally murmured, still refusing to look away from the sky. Dave chuckled, shaking his head. Dreams don't pay the bills, Brooks. And they sure as hell don't get you the clearance to fly multi-million-dollar fighters. With that, he sauntered off, amused by his own sarcasm. Haley stayed rooted to her spot near the maintenance hangar, her attention fully absorbed in the ongoing flight exercises. She monitored the F-22s as they pushed through a series of maneuvers that were as aggressive as they were complex, scenarios crafted to test the skill and mental acuity of even the most seasoned aviators. While others watched casually, Haley analyzed, absorbed, learned. She had no idea that in less than an hour, one of those jets would be spiraling toward crisis. And in that moment, the pilot's only hope might lie in the hands of someone like Valkyrie, whoever she really was. The rhythmic buzz of radios and the roar of afterburners continued. Haley remained focused, tuning her ears to the flow of chatter between pilots and control towers. The high-stakes exercise rolled on. But then Dave returned from his break, swaggering back with a paper coffee cup in one hand and trouble in the other. He had Rick Santos and Mike Chen with him, both eager, both looking for a cheap laugh at someone else's expense. "Hey, Brooks," Dave shouted loud enough for everyone within 100 feet to hear. "Still studying those flight patterns? Maybe if you stare hard enough, you'll grow the qualifications you were born without." Rick smirked and added, "Come on, Dave, give her a break. Maybe she's gonna take another crack at flight school. I mean, who wouldn't want a candidate who spent 8 years scraping bird guts off canopies?" Mike didn't miss a beat. "Oh man, can you even picture it? Tower, this is Maintenance 1 requesting permission to taxi back to the hangar. Forgot my wrench." The three of them broke into laughter, their jeers bouncing across the tarmac. Some of the other techs nearby joined in half-heartedly. A few looked away, uncomfortable but unwilling to speak up. Haley kept her head down, her face unreadable as she tapped through screens on her tablet. She wasn't doing it out of obligation. Her job didn't require this level of technical analysis. But because understanding every nuance of the F-22's avionics systems gave her an edge, it made her simulations more authentic, more lethal. She didn't just want to know how the jet flew, she wanted to know why it flew the way it did. And the bitter truth, the one that made their jokes all the more hollow, was that she probably knew these machines better than some of the pilots flying them. But Dave wasn't done. "Look at her," he said, gesturing like she was part of a sideshow exhibit. "Still acting like any of that crap in the manuals is going to turn her into something she's not. Face it, Brooks, you're a wrench monkey. That's all you'll ever be." Rick gave a sage nod. "Exactly. Some people are meant to flame. Others, they're meant to grease the gears. And that's fine as long as you know your place. They couldn't see the fire behind her steady gaze. They had no idea that the night before, under the call sign Valkyrie, she'd led a simulated engagement that left an entire Navy squadron in digital flames. A mission so complicated it demanded synchronized coordination between 6 different aircraft types. One that she not only survived, but dominated with a tactical brilliance. They didn't know that high-ranking officers from 3 Allied Air Forces had studied her combat tactics and quietly implemented them into their training curricula. But she didn't say any of this. She just kept scanning telemetry data, refining her understanding. Then everything changed. The background radio chatter shifted. The usual calm laced suddenly with urgency. The easy banter between air traffic control and the pilots went tight, clipped. Redstone Tower, this is Raptor Lead. We've got a problem up here. That voice, Haley recognized it instantly. Major Alex Thompson, one of Redstone's top F-22 drivers. She'd studied his maneuvers obsessively, using his recorded flights to test and improve her simulations. Now he was in real trouble. The radio crackled with urgency. Raptor Lead Tower, state your emergency. Major Thompson's voice came through, tight and controlled, but with a tension Haley recognized instantly. We've lost primary navigation systems, and our backup GPS is giving erratic readings. Severe turbulence from an unexpected weather front. Our instruments are giving us conflicting altitude data. Haley's pulse spiked. She leaned in instinctively, her ears locked on the transmission. This wasn't part of the simulation. This was real. The mood in the room shifted in an instant. Dave, Rick, and Mike, who'd been laughing just moments before, now sat frozen, the weight of the unfolding crisis replacing the lightness of their earlier jokes. Outside on the tarmac, emergency vehicles sprang into motion, lights flashing in the dusk. Raptor Lead, we're working on vectors for emergency approach, the tower replied. Can you hold your current heading? Negative, Tower, Thompson responded. The weather front is larger than radar showed. We need immediate guidance on an alternate approach. Standard procedures aren't working in these conditions. Silence followed, heavy and uncertain. Haley could hear it even through the static, the way Major Thompson was trying and failing to keep the stress out of his voice. She'd simulated this exact scenario dozens of times. Weather interference, full nav system failure. In her runs, conventional approach methods failed 60% of the time. But she had created a workaround, one the manuals didn't list, one that had worked. The control tower came back, but their words lacked certainty. Raptor Lead, standby. We're consulting emergency procedures manual. Then breaking through the static, Thompson's voice came again, this time different, not just stressed, but urgent, and clinging to something like hope. Redstone Tower, this is going to sound strange, but is there any way you can get in touch with someone called Valkyrie? I know it's a long shot, but if she's anywhere nearby, we could use her help. The room fell silent. Dave's jaw dropped. Rick and Mike exchanged wide-eyed looks. But Haley's heart stopped mid-beat. Thompson continued, faster now. Valkyrie came up with a non-standard approach pattern for exactly this kind of emergency. It's not in any manual, but I've seen it work, multiple times. If there's any chance of contacting her, the control tower's reply came uncertain. Raptor Lead, we don't have any pilot by that call sign on duty tonight. She's not active duty, Thompson said quickly. She's a civilian, a simulation expert who helped develop some of the emergency procedures currently in use. She sees things differently, outside protocol. She's saved lives before. We need her now. Dave turned slowly to face Haley, confusion and realization dawning in his expression. Valkyrie? Isn't that the name you use in those dumb computer games you're always playing? Haley didn't answer. She was already looking at the radio, then at the jet circling overhead, trapped in worsening weather. For 8 years, she had lived behind the screen, creating solutions, saving lives anonymously, while the real world passed her by. She'd accepted invisibility because the system had told her that's all she'd ever have. But now that invisibility might be the reason a pilot died. They'd closed one door on her. But they didn't realize she had built herself a whole other runway, one made of code, instinct, and relentless determination. And tonight, that invisible runway might be the only one Major Thompson could land on. When rejection slams the door in your face, do you surrender your dream or do you build your own sky? Now, the very system that dismissed her was calling out for the one person it had tried to erase. What happens when the elite, those trained to fly, need the help of someone they never thought belonged in the cockpit? Above them, Thompson's F-22 banked hard through worsening turbulence, its engine growling against the sky grown increasingly hostile. The tower's efforts to find a safe vector were failing. Each call grew more desperate. Raptor lead, we're detecting multiple storm cells converging on your location. Recommend immediate diversion to alternate airfield. Negative, tower, came Thompson's terse reply. Fuel state critical. We need to land here. Now. The tension hung thick in the air, heavier than the clouds above. Every second mattered, and the one person with the answer was already in the room. They need to land immediately. Haley glances at the radio inside the control vehicle, then shifts her gaze to Dave. His smirk has faded, replaced by a look of near disbelief. Rick and Mike stand motionless, their minds struggling to grasp the gravity of what they've just heard. You're Valkyrie, Dave whispers, as if speaking too loudly might shatter the reality of it. The Valkyrie, the legendary figure all the pilots gossip about in the forums. For 8 years, Haley has hidden behind this screen name, anonymously assisting elite pilots through impossible scenarios. Always unseen, always in the background. But now invisibility is a luxury she cannot afford, not when a man's life dangles on the edge. Determined, she strides toward the control vehicle. Inside, Sergeant Williams, the radio operator, is frantically flipping through emergency procedure manuals, beads of sweat rolling down his forehead. Haley's voice is calm but firm. Sergeant, I need to speak with Raptor lead. Williams looks up puzzled. Ma'am, this is restricted communication during an emergency. Just tell him Valkyrie is here. After a brief hesitation, Williams keys the radio. Raptor lead, we have someone here claiming to be Valkyrie. The response comes instantly, charged with disbelief. Valkyrie? Are you serious? Put her on immediately. Williams hands Haley the microphone, his hands trembling slightly. She inhales deeply, knowing that uttering these words will shatter more than just Major Thompson's crisis. It will upend her own carefully maintained veil of anonymity. Raptor led, this is Valkyrie. I've been monitoring your situation. You're facing converging microbursts from 3 different storm cells. Incorrect, Valkyrie, Thompson replies, a flicker of hope in his voice. Thank God, she breathes. Yes, that's exactly right. Standard approach vectors are guiding you straight into severe downdrafts. The control tower's recommended patterns have a high failure rate under these conditions, according to our simulations. Haley closes her eyes, mentally replaying the tactical scenario she's solved countless times in the digital world. You need to try something that's not in any manual. It will feel counterintuitive, but trust me. Dave and the other technicians cluster around the control vehicle, joined by several pilots and ground crew, all recognizing the significance of the moment. Word is spreading rapidly across the base. The elusive Valkyrie, whose tactical innovations have influenced air forces worldwide, is actually here, speaking directly to one of their own. I'm listening, Valkyrie. Whatever you've got, Thompson says. Instead of fighting the downdrafts, you're going to use them, Haley instructs, her voice steady and commanding as she slips into the mindset that made her legendary in simulation circles. Approach from the northwest at Angels 12, but instead of maintaining the standard glide slope, execute what I call the Valkyrie drop. Her tone grows more confident. When you hit the first downdraft, don't resist it. Let it carry you downward while keeping forward momentum. It'll feel like you're falling, but you're actually riding the air currents that will slingshot you past the worst turbulence. That goes against everything we're trained to do, Thompson responds, but there's trust in his voice now. I know, Haley admits. Conventional training assumes normal weather patterns, but these microbursts create a corridor of stable air, about 50 feet wide and 30 feet high. It's like threading a needle, but it's there. I've mapped it in simulations hundreds of times. A heavy silence falls as Major Thompson processes this. Valkyrie, I've flown with Navy pilots who swear by your tactical innovations. If you say there's a corridor, I believe you. As Haley carefully guides Major Thompson through the unconventional approach, a crowd gathers around the control vehicle, Among them is Colonel Sarah Mitchell, the base commander, who has been quietly monitoring the emergency from her office. "Who is this person?" Colonel Mitchell asked Sergeant Williams under her breath. "That's Haley Brooks, ma'am. She's one of our maintenance technicians," he replies. Colonel Mitchell raises her eyebrows, surprise flickering across her face. The maintenance technician was quietly giving tactical advice to my lead pilot. Dave stepped forward, his earlier teasing completely forgotten, as he said, "Colonel, she's Valkyrie, the Valkyrie. Every pilot in the service knows that name." The colonel's face shifted from confusion to recognition. She'd heard the stories about a mysterious tactical genius who appears in military flight simulations, devising strategies so advanced that air forces worldwide have adopted them quietly. Pentagon analyst says had spent years trying to uncover Valkyrie's identity, speculating she was either a classified AI or a retired ace operating undercover. "Raptor lead descending now," Thompson's voice crackled over the radio, steady and trusting. "Valkyrie, I'm placing my full trust in you here." Haley's voice remained calm and precise as she continued issuing instructions with quiet authority. "When you hit the second downdraft, reduce power by 15% and adjust your angle of attack to -2 degrees. You'll feel the aircraft drop suddenly. That's the current carrying you into the stable corridor." Through the control tower's windows, everyone watched in stunned silence as the F-22 executed maneuvers that defied conventional logic. Rather than battling the storm, the plane seemed to flow with it, gracefully using turbulent air currents like stepping stones toward the runway. "Incredible," Colonel Mitchell breathed. "I've never seen anything like this." "Raptor laid, you should be seeing the runway lights now," Haley instructed. "The final approach will feel unstable, but hold your current vector. The ground effect will smooth out in the last 50 feet. "Valkyrie, I have visual on the runway," Thompson replied, his voice tight with hope. It's working. Whatever you're doing, it's working." The F-22 touched down as smoothly as silk, a landing so flawless that the crowd on the ground erupted into spontaneous applause. Major Thompson's voice came over the radio, overflowing with relief and awe. "Valkyrie, that was the most unconventional approach I've ever flown, and easily the smoothest landing I've made in 5 years. You just saved my life." As emergency crews rushed toward the aircraft to secure everything, Colonel Mitchell approached Haley directly. "Ms. Brooks, we need to have a conversation. A very long conversation." Dave, still trying to process everything he'd just witnessed, approached Haley with a newfound reverence. "All this time we thought you were just a mechanic with impossible dreams." Haley finished softly, no trace of bitterness in her voice. "Dave, I never stopped being a mechanic. I just learned to fix more than engines." Major Thompson's voice came over the radio one last time, sincere and grateful. "Valkyrie, whoever you are, wherever you are, thank you. You didn't just save one pilot tonight. You proved that innovation can come from the most unexpected places." As the crowd began to disperse and the immediate crisis faded, Haley looked up toward the storm clouds that had nearly claimed a fellow aviator. For 8 years, she had hidden her true expertise behind a screen name and a closed door. But tonight, that door finally opened, not because anyone gave her permission, but because she chose to walk through it herself. The aftermath of Major Thompson's miraculous emergency landing reshaped Redstone Air Base in ways far beyond a single dramatic rescue. Within an hour, word rippled through military aviation networks. The legendary Valkyrie had been identified. Colonel Mitchell personally escorted Haley to the base commander's office, where senior officers awaited with expressions ranging from amazement to embarrassment. Among them stood Major Thompson himself, still in his flight suit, eager to meet the person who had guided him safely home. "Ms. Brooks," Colonel Mitchell began, "I've spent the last hour reviewing your personnel file and cross-referencing it with Pentagon communications. It appears you've been very busy during your off-duty hours." Haley sat quietly, still absorbing the surreal shift from shadow to spotlight, from unknown to legend. Her work had once been invisible, tucked away behind the scenes, but it had evolved into something unmistakably influential. "I never meant for my simulation work to become so visible," Haley admitted quietly. "Ma'am, it was just a way to stay connected to flying." Major Thompson leaned forward, his gaze intense. Valkyrie, your tactical innovations have been analyzed extensively at the War College. The phantom approach you developed for low-visibility operations has been adopted by 3 NATO air forces. This revelation triggered an immediate, thorough review of Haley's original flight school application. What they uncovered was a troubling combination of institutional bias and bureaucratic failure. Her physical qualifications had always been well within the acceptable ranges. Her written exams placed her in the top 5%. Her psychological assessments revealed exceptional spatial reasoning and remarkable crisis management skills. Captain Lisa Rodriguez, the base's flight training coordinator, sifted through the old files with growing frustration. This rejection, she muttered under her breath, was a critical mistake. Haley's scores far exceeded the admission standards. During a break in the meetings, Dave Martinez approached Haley. His earlier arrogance had softened into genuine humility. "Brooks, Haley, I owe you an apology," he said, struggling to meet her eyes. "All those jokes, all the times I told you to know your place, I was such an idiot." Haley weighed his words carefully. "Dave, you weren't wrong about everything. I am a mechanic. I know these aircraft inside and out because I work on them every day. That knowledge made me a better pilot, even if only in simulation. But I tried to make you feel small for dreaming big, and I let you because I thought being small was safer than risking it all. Maybe today we both learned something." Rick and Mike approached, a tablet in hand, showing online aviation forums buzzing with excitement over Valkyrie's true identity. "Haley, you need to see this," Rick said. "The simulation community is going wild. There's a post from a retired Navy pilot who's been trying to recruit Valkyrie for a civilian aviation consulting firm for 2 years." As the day unfolded, formal offers began to arrive. The Pentagon wanted to discuss incorporating her tactical innovations into official training curricula. Private aerospace companies sought her expertise for their flight simulation systems. Several military units reached out about instructor positions. Yet the most meaningful moment came when Major Thompson found her alone in the hangar where she had worked for 8 years. "Valkyrie, Haley, I want to ask you something personal," he said softly. "After everything today, after all these opportunities opening up, what do you really want?" Haley looked around the familiar space, the aircraft she had maintained, the tools she had used, the place where she had spent years preparing for a moment she never expected to arrive. "I want to fly, Major. Not in simulation, not just in theory. I want to feel what you felt tonight, Ute, when you trusted my guidance and brought that aircraft home safely." Thompson smiled, a warm, knowing smile. "Then let's make that happen officially this time." In a world obsessed with credentials and gatekeepers, some dreams refuse to be grounded. They find their own runways, build their own wings, and soar beyond the reach of rejection letters. Haley Brooks understood what many never do. Closed doors don't end journeys. They redirect them toward paths unseen. 8 months after that emergency landing, Haley stood on the flight line at Redstone Air Base, wearing the uniform she had once been told she would never earn. Flight training had been grueling, but her years of simulation experience and intimate understanding of aircraft systems made her one of the most promising candidates the program had ever seen. Dave Martinez, now her biggest supporter, watched from the ground crew as she ran through her pre-flight checks on an F-22 Raptor. His transformation from mocker to mentor had become legendary on the base, a reminder that sometimes the greatest lessons come from those who once doubted you most. People we often overlook are the ones who have the most to teach us. "I still can't believe I used to tell her to just stick to her wrenches." Dave says this to the new maintenance recruits now, a lesson learned the hard way. It turns out she was already flying, just in ways I was too narrow-minded to recognize. At the base, they've started the Valkyrie Innovation Program, a new initiative encouraging everyone, from the lowest ranks to the highest, to contribute tactical and technical ideas, no matter their official role. Maintenance crews, support staff, and administrative personnel are regularly submitting suggestions that have led to real improvements in how the base runs and how safe the flights are. Major Thompson, now the squadron commander, often credits Haley's unconventional background for bringing fresh, valuable perspectives to military aviation. She sees aircraft differently because she's touched every bolt, every wire, every component. Haley understands the machine as intimately as she understands the sky. Lieutenant Haley Valkyrie Brooks has become something extraordinary in the world of military aviation, a pilot whose expertise stretches from the hangar floor all the way to the cockpit. Her innovations build a bridge between theoretical knowledge and hands-on experience. During her graduation ceremony from flight school, she was asked to speak to the crowd. Her words resonated as a rallying cry for anyone who's ever been told they don't belong. "Rejection isn't the end of your story," she said, looking out at the crowd filled with fellow pilots and ground crew alike. "It's just the beginning of a different chapter. Sometimes the path you're forced to take is exactly the one you were meant to walk." She reached up and touched the wings pinned to her uniform, wings she earned not in spite of her years as a mechanic, but because of them. Some pilots learn to fly by studying manuals. Others learn by fixing the aircraft that carry those dreams. Both paths lead to the same sky. Today, as Haley climbs into the cockpit of her F-22, she spots Dave on the ground, giving her a thumbs up. The same hands that once gripped wrenches now hold the controls of the most advanced fighter jet in the world. At Redstone Air Base, a new plaque hangs in the maintenance hangar. It reads, "Rejection delays your flight, it never cancels it. The sky belongs to those who refuse to stop reaching for it." Some dreams get stamped with rejection. Others write their own letters of approval, written in the language of persistence and proven in moments when skill matters more than permission. The best pilots aren't always the ones chosen first. Sometimes they're the ones who choose themselves. Real pilots never let rejection be their final destination. They make it their motivation.